Welcome visitor, my name is Declan and this is 17th part of the WoW Player's Diary. Early Cataclysm sales in Kiev. Driven by curiosity, I went to the early sales event for World of Warcraft Cataclysm in Kiev, and beyond just picking up my game boxes, I had ordered both Cataclysm and the Burning Crusade Collector's Editions. I also arranged to meet up with some readers of my blog. Getting the games and meeting the guys was a given, but I was also curious to see what the organizers had planned for the event. Especially, I wanted to check out the arena, a gaming center located in the same building as the store, Area 41. Here's a quick rundown of how it went all down before the sales officially kicked off at 10 p.m. The arena made a great impression. From what I knew, it was the largest computer club in the city at the time. 1,500 square meters, well, it was not a joke. The space was designed not just for players, but for spectators too. It featured a stage with large screens facing the hall, with an arena that resembled orchestra seating, soft chairs and tables for audience. This was an unexpected experience for me. The last time I'd been at a gaming club was around beginning of the century, at the place called Ox. It was a cramped semi-basement packed with people. But at what else does a kid need to play games? However, times were changing and video games were becoming an increasingly spectacular sport. It was 210 and the emergence of major esports platforms and halls was just around the corner. As I mentioned, sales began after 10 p.m. With our loot secured, we trudged home to, as the saying goes, rush in and install the game. The server start was scheduled at 1 a.m. I got home close to midnight, unpacked the collector's edition, entered the code into my account and logged it in. I summoned my little Deathwing pet and ran around Stormwind. The servers were already lagging noticeably from the influx of players, and after the restart, the login server crashed completely. I decided to call it a night and try again the next day. However, the login issues were far from over. The release of the World of Warcraft Cataclysm. After the release, nearly every server was plagued by one problem: queries. Some were longer, some were shorter, but they were everywhere. I had gotten used to 500-600 persons queries after transferring to Gorduni in 209. 30 or 40 minutes isn't a big deal, you just query up and do something else. On that first evening, I tried to log in early, expecting a wait of about an hour. Instead, I was greeted with a query of 2,800 people and an estimated wait time over the 200 minutes. I only managed to log in by a stroke of luck. I tapped back and checked my spot and saw the server had just crashed and restarted. The release brought a massive wave of players back to the game, likely more than even Blizzard had anticipated. A week before launch, a blue post stated that Blizzard had no plans to open new EU servers, and this seemed like a strange decision, especially since they had to be expecting the return of long-retired veterans. They must have had a plan B in case the servers, became too crowded. Sure enough, a few days later, players in the Russian servers got the good news. A new realm called Goldrin PvE was being opened. Free characters transfers were available from the most congested servers, including Gorduni, until December 13. That's when I first started seriously thinking about transferring. Sitting in queries every night with a constant risk of being disconnected was not appealing, and being guildness meant my only option for raiding was with the randoms, which was, depressing. But more on that later. It took me 5 days to reach level 81, and I gained half of that level through archaeology while I had rest experience. At level 80, a single archaeology final yielded a whopping 11,000 experience points with full rested XP. That was a decent chunk, especially since the starting zones on Gurduni were an absolute chaotic mess for the first few days. I mostly dug up troll fragments in Eastern Kingdoms and saved the artifacts until after I hit level 81 to get a quick skill up boost. For my actual combat level, I headed to Hijal. I really enjoyed the zone, mainly for its diversity: a green forest, a scorched desert, a sand quarry, and a picture quail lake. Of course, the obsidian winds, which also gave a ton of experience, didn't hurt. In other words, leveling my main was going smoothly. Besides leveling, I was actively crafting. I entered Cataclysm with 90,000 golds and 3 max-leveled crafters. Remembering the old adage to strike while the iron is hot, I immediately leveled my DK's profession. Alchemy took about an hour and 4,000 gold, but it paid for itself almost instantly. My first bar of Pyrium sold for 3,200 gold, and 3 Shadow Spirit diamonds went for 750 gold each. Even with expensive reagents, the profit was solid. Tailoring was also decent. Crafted level 330 plus blues sold fairly quickly for players eager for upgrades. Engineering was the toughest to level and sales were slow. But geocrafting was a killer. There were evenings when I pulled more than 10,000 gold out of the mailbox. What else was memorable about the first week of Cataclysm? Well, the 5-place heroics, of course. That was amazing to read the forums, which were flooded with complaints about the difficult content. For the last 6 months of Wrath of the Lich King, heroics were a mindless rush. The tank would pull everything, the DPS would melt at it all with AoE, and the healer just trailed behind, occasionally tossing out an AoE heal. Suddenly, these heroes of the Ice-Crown Citadel found themselves wiping on the trash packs. Players had to relearn concepts like kill orders, crowd control, and pulling one pack at the time. The days of speed running were over, and for a while the difficulty was a real shock to the system. The same was true for raids. The heavily nerfed ICC had made players soft, and even the first few bosses in the new raids posed a challenge for many casual guilds. Another point of contention was an underwater zone, Vaishir. Here the designers experimented with 3-dimensional combat, and not everyone was a fan of it. While flying offers freedom of movement, fighting underwater in Vaishir was a different beast. Some players struggled with judging distance to enemies and navigating the environment. Unfortunately, the developers anticipated this and provided an alternative leveling zone, Deep Holm. Cataclysm was unique in its approach to new zones. Instead of new continent, the new areas were scattered across the old world, which itself had been completely redesigned. I hit level 85 in Deep Holm on January 10th while working on Terrazan quest chain. By then I had about half of solo content behind me, with Uldum and Twilight Highlands still untouched. My group content progress was even slower. I had only been in 3 dungeons: Black Core Currents, Throne of the Tides, and the Stone Core. My leveling from 70 to 80 in Wrath of the Lich King had been much slower, taking 2.5 months, during which I'd run every dungeon multiple times. A major factor in a faster pace this time, besides the ability to fly everywhere, was the removal of the mana bar for hunters. With the new focus resource, I no longer had to stop to drink. Life as a hunter became much more fun, and the mobs felt weaker, if they even managed to reach me. Overall, the atmosphere at the start of the expansions was fantastic. The rework of the Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms gave everyone a reason to revisit these long abandoned zones. Being able to fly over the old world was a delight in itself, and the new quest integrated the classic continents into the current storyline. At first, it seemed like Blizzard had found the perfect formula for keeping old content relevant. I wasn't in any rush. I was quietly enjoying the questing and playing the auction house, and I even found a comfortable guild, an Orion. That was a small casual guild that wasn't focused on the raiding, let alone progression. And frankly, after my previous experience, I had no desire to join another group of hardcore overcomers. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. To be continued. Thank you very much for your attention.